Okay. All right, then. They can't blame me for anything. Baked goodies today were provided by Nikki, and they are pretty wonderful, so get right up there and have a few. Donations are going to go back to the Antler Swamp again, so that's good for our island. 2 weeks ago, we raised another $60 for them, so then we'll add this amount to them. So now a little bit about Doug Hay, our speaker for today. Doug was born in Winnipeg. He graduated from UBC with a BSc and then a PhD in zoology from the Fisheries Institute of UBC. His first job was in teaching intro biology at UVic, and he then became an assistant professor at the University of Western Ontario, where he taught zoology for another 2 years. He had a few other jobs, and then later he worked at the Halifax Biological Station, which was possibly a natural progression to come here to the West Coast. So he joined the Pacific Biological Station in 1977, where he spent the greatest part of his career, namely 30 years, studying the early life history and, in other words, the egg and larval stages of the Pacific herring. As well, he studied forage fish, and that is everything but salmon. Doug is an adjunct professor at UBC and a professor emeritus from the Biological Station. He has traveled extensively through his work, heading advisory committees in Finland and Norway. He has worked a lot with colleagues in Asia, and he and Ellie, his wife, lived in South Korea for 2 years, where he taught at the Pukkyong National University. His wife, Ellie, died in 2020. They had been married for 54 years, so that was a sad time. Doug's career has tapered, he says, but he's still on a few important councils, namely the Exxon Valdez Oil Spill Trustee Council. Doug moved to PI in 2014. He and his partner now, Brenda, spend time traveling and enjoying this beautiful island that we all live on. Now, Doug today is going to talk about sex on the rocks. And before anybody gets really excited, that's herring sex, guys. So, Doug, here you go. Okay, great.
Thank you. I'll relax a little bit if you can tell me if we can go to the next slide. Oh, we did. It's working. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, welcome.
This isn't this fall may be partially mine and partially Microsoft's. I had a really difficult time putting this together with the latest Microsoft. What is this? It's font structure. Yeah, well, sure. This is PowerPoint. Something or other. I couldn't say it. I saved it in the conventional way I did it, PowerPoint, and it just ate my slides. It just truly did screw up everything I stuck in there. So I had to save it to something called PowerPoint X. Sorry, PowerPoint M, and it works there. It works on my computer, but somehow there's been a bit of a hiccup here. I think I should just point out that we have a visitor from Norway here. I don't remember your name. I can't remember any of it, but the last time I was at the Bergen, I worked with Dacia dos Santos. A Brazilian student who was doing a PhD in Norway. I staying there. Today, what I want to talk about is a list of different things. So I just made a disclosure. I just took all sorts of things from the web and stuck it in here, even if it's not my work. Some of it is, but I like the slides better online than my own ones. So that's what I'm going to do there. And I'm going to have to ask Peter to switch slides. What if I say just next? Okay. I point out to people here that the Pacific Biological Station has a real history in Nanaimo. It didn't used to be part of Fisheries and Oceans. It was a part of a thing called the Fisheries Research Board of Canada. Probably Graham was there at that time. And it was a very good institution. One, there's a number in the world that are really quite good. Bergen is now certainly there. 1,000 people work in the Bergen Research Lab, which in Bergen, Norway is about the same population as BC. We have nothing like it here. So, but this was part of a thing. There was a Pacific Biological Station, one in St. Andrews, and a couple in Lowestoft, and one in Lowestoft. It was a world-class institution. It's not quite the same now. It's being incorporated into a federal government department, DFO. And next slide. It's not quite the same. So I have some few regrets about that part. I have 5 parts of it. So I want to talk about the history of herring in Nanaimo. I want to look a top-down view of herring in BC. I want to talk a lot about herring life history. That's where the sex part is. And the fishery, which everybody has views about, and habitat. Next one, please. That's a herring. Many herring. Next one. That. And the next one. And the next one. I see myself something like this. Sometimes I'm a bit of a contrarian. And the next one, please. Everybody likes herring, especially if you have scales. I could have put on mammalian predators, sea lions. There's a sea lion there. Seals, and certainly they're important for everything. They're a forage fish which are consumed. The biggest forage fish probably on the BC coast. The next slide. So I'll just jump into part 1. Herring is Nanaimo's part of Nanaimo's history, and it's the Pacific Biological Station, which used to be the Fisheries Research Board of Canada. The next one. Oh, something's missing there. Next slide. Okay, these are. I don't know where I got these pictures. They're probably illegal. That's the bastion. You can see it. This is the Nanaimo Harbor, and they're fishing for herring. Next slide. They're probably from postcards. And it's all just the same. Nanaimo used to be known as Herring Town. It was one of the striking features. After coal, it was herring, and they catch herring and they'd salt them. Next one. And this is the back one, please, Peter. This is Newcastle Island. There's a little book by a fellow called Bill Merrilees, and this one here. And it describes the history of herring fishing as it was done in this area and Newcastle Island. And then one point I think is important to keep in mind is herring were right here. They're right here in Nanaimo. They're not here now the way they used to be. And this is where they did the process of catches. Next one, Peter. Next one. That's just Departure Bay going down the channel. That's where the saltery was. Next one, please. And that's fishing with this handheld rough seining way back in the 10s and 20s, I guess, 1920s. And that's Newcastle Island, I think. Or I can't remember, but that's definitely Departure Bay. Next one. And they caught them. They were spawning in these areas, which we don't see now, and that's important to me that they don't. And this one is completely upside down. How'd that happen? I don't know. Magic. Well, you're right, because anyway, that one and that one, it's weird. This is the Pacific Biological Station. This used to be a dormitory. People come here and they'd study in the summer months and whatnot and go back. Not too many people were full-time at the turn of the century, the early 1900s. That was my office for 10 or 20 years. But in a dormitory, then they lived there. It was their life, and that used to be the dock. That's Newcastle, and
Jesse Austin.
yeah. Next one, please. Okay, a top-down look at Herring. Am I okay? Can I stand here?
Yeah.
Okay. I like this book just because it gives me it's a little book called Europe in the Sea, and I wanted to point out a few things that are kind of academic, but I like it. Part of what our civilization, at least the Northern European civilization, came from herring, I believe. Next one, please. It's something called the Hanseatic League, which was an effort to modernize herring fishing. Next one, please. And the thing that I thought was interesting was just the origin of the word herring. And I put it here, and I'll do it again so you can see it clear. Next one, please. Yeah, that book explains a few things about herring, and the development of salting herring, putting salt in herring, allowing them to preserve fish. They catch the fish, they salt them at sea. That allowed vessels in those days, fishing vessels especially, to go longer distances, much longer distances. And it was around the 1400s when they started doing this. And that's what led to the Hanseatic League, which is part of what Bergen is all about, Bergen, Norway. And it even led to people going from Europe over to the Newfoundland area, on Cabot at his time. Next one, please. And this is the origin of the word herring. I'm not sure I can read that, but it's originally a Greek word, and it was Latinized in different forms, which all mean salt, and it developed into the French, English, and German words, which are similar to herring. So herring and the word herring and salt have a common origin. Next one, please. And I mentioned this around in the early 1400s. That's when things got to be. It was a technological development, and it allowed Europeans to go to sea and go much further out. It even probably led to Columbus salting different fish, getting it over to North America. And that might not be a good thing in some people's minds. Next one, please. Okay, if you look at herring, when you look at the world, top down, you're right on the North Pole. That's the North Pole. That's North America. Are you okay? That's Europe, and this is Asia. We are right here. And this is herring that are in the Pacific. This is herring that are in the Atlantic. And there are herring that are that occur right through the Arctic. Not many. There's herring in Hudson Bay. We did a review with about 20 or 30 authors from all sorts of different countries years ago, and we missed Hudson Bay. There's herring there, but there's no scientific papers about them. The only scientific papers were done by the power companies that dam Hudson Bay, and they're all in French. So we missed it, at least I missed it. But now we've recognized that, and there are herring there, and we got it into our paper at the last moment. Next one, please. If you just look at the Pacific, this is Asia, that's the Bering Sea, that's North America, and we are here. And all these little dots represent different herring populations, and of different sizes. Next, the colors are not quite on here. It's kind of funny. These big dots represent larger herring populations, and little dots are so-so. And on the original things, they're colored, but you can't see them here. There's a number of really smallish populations and a number of really big ones. Here in the Strait of Georgia, this one's about, give or take, about 100,000 metric tons. Historically, it's a pretty good size. Over here, they're even bigger. We don't know much about what the Russians are doing these days. It's probably combined by cartels of some sort. I'm not exaggerating that. Hokkaido Sakhalin herring, this is a huge one in Japan. It's the same thing that it's the market going today. This was a big population. These Sakhalin herring, Hokkaido Sakhalin, are now more Sakhalin. in Russia than they are in Japan. It's part of the reason why they like to have herring here from BC, because they grow on kelp as being herring roe has been a big part of their culture. Next one, please. There's an interesting genetic divide between these two things. All of these herring here basically came from a different place than these herring. This is this line actually should exclude this, but the Bering Sea herring and the Asian herring probably after the ice ages came down from the Arctic, and here they came up from the south. The next one, please. Next slide. This is just a way of diagramming it. During the last ice age, Pacific herring came down here, and like lots of other fish that were pushed south during the ice ages, they spent their time in the Gulf of California, which is between Baja, the peninsula, and there. It's still called the Gulf of California, because Trump hasn't got there yet. But these little dots here, I mean, they're all genetic. There's differences, genetic differences in these populations, but these are more similar than these. Next one, please. The possible good news about this is that as the climate is warming and the water is warming, these our herring here were originally once adapted to warmer water, so they might do a little bit better than some of the herring that had the Arctic experience. It wasn't called a refugium. This is where they went to escape the ice ages. Next one, please. So here's a little bit about the biology of herring. This is, and I'll have the same slide again several times. And this color looks good. This is where we are in BC, right here. This is Vancouver Island, and this is where herring are in BC. But they occur throughout the Alaskan, what do we call it, the Southeast Alaska. This is Prince William Sound, where the big oil spill was, and that's the Bering Sea. Next one, please. Oh, and there's a couple of herring, I guess I mentioned in the Arctic. If you look at the book called The Atlantic Fishes of Canada, these are called Atlantic herring that get over here. And if you look at the book called The Pacific Fishes of Canada, they get over here. Two different authors and just different perspectives. Our herring live maximally 7 to 10 years, not much more than that. I think the oldest that somebody has described is 15. I don't believe it, but some in California, they will sexually mature at age 2. It'll look like a regular little herring. Here it's usually age 3. Alaska, it could be 4 or 5. And as you go from south to north, they get a little bit bigger. Next one, please. And this is where we're going to get to the sex part. Next one, please. Oh, I'm sorry, this is good. I want to talk about 4 main stages. I call this gametes, which is it's the eggs and the sperm before they get together. The larvae, which are little guys. The juvenile herring look like this. And the adults, which are mostly, we would call them here mainly 3 years old and older. Okay, next one, please. Can I turn the lights on? Would it make any difference?
It's not bad.
No?
You turn the lights on?
But I think it might make it clearer.
Okay.
There's a try in front of them.
Oh, okay.
There's a little lever there. You can just turn down the intensity there.
One lever?
Yeah, I see a little lever on the side of the light switch there. Switches. That's
Here. Oh, I see the test. Didn't make a difference.
Anyway,
Okay.
there's 4 switches there, so
You want me to?
I'll just carry that.
Is that better? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you want any more? Yes. Okay.
I think probably most people have seen something about spawning in the spring when the water turns white, and they'll be seeing some eggs. Probably nobody's seen herring larvae and so-called juveniles. But I'm going to talk about each of these 4 stages with a little bit more detail. Next one, please. So, I'm trying. Oh, just kidding. They spawn in the spring, and each of these is a separate little spawning site. The currents will take this intense milt in the water and move it around. Next one, please. So I'm looking at this, and I wanted to try to explain what's happening here. Next one, please. Not just herring, but all fish, they have a problem. When they're spawning, what they want to do is get the sperm and the eggs together almost exactly at the same time. If you're a female fish in the water and you'll release your egg doesn't have a long time before it becomes unfertilizable, if there's such a word. Eggs have a little hole in them called the micropyle, and you have to get a sperm into there. And if you don't get it there soon enough, it closes over, and that egg won't die right away, but it won't be fertile, and eventually will die. In herring, usually 4 or 5 days, it starts to die. Then fungus sets in. It's not a good idea. Sometimes we find whole strips of eggs that have not been fertilized for one reason or the other. Next one, please. What they do is, this is a shot of, that's a herring school. This is probably 50 or 100 feet, 50 meters across. They hang out together, and they are really trying to synchronize each other. The next one, there's another case where they're together. The white is herring that are boiling to the surface. The little white dots are seagulls. And they release pheromones, which are substances which turn each other on. And literally, they do it. Usually males are ready to spawn before females, so it's a question of getting it together. So that the eggs and the larvae are going to do it properly. Next one, please. Again, another shot of looking down at herring as they're on the spawning grounds, but before they've started the spawn. Next one, please. And I've just said this, they have to be together, but herring are unique because the males have the capacity to release sperm into the water, but unlike other fish, those sperm, they're not activated right away. They're little flagellums that I like to think are hanging down there. And so the sperm can be viable in the water for actually quite a while. I think even days if it's the right conditions. So they have a little bit of latitude. That's how they build in their fail-safe mechanisms. If you are a salmon in freshwater or a fish like that, you have to make sure you're synchronized really closely. But herring they've hedged their bets a bit by having the capacity of the sperm to hang in there a little bit, literally. Okay, next one, please. And so males can release sperm, but what if the females are not quite ready? I'm already talking about that. And I mentioned that the female's eggs have a little hole called the micropyle. That hole is open for one sperm to go through, but only one. You can't have too many go through, otherwise you have a problem called polyspermy. Next one, please. So, and these sperm, as I mentioned, can survive in the water until they are sort of activated, and they get activated when they sense that there's a females are ready to go. Okay, next one. This is milk coming from a male. That's a so-called urogenital papilla. They have two testes, of course, and it comes from both of those. Both of those sperm ducts into there, and it's released like that. Next one, please. And these are sperm trails as they're going through the water, and you can just sort of see each tail movement as they're going through. And of course, very soon, these little lines of sperm will just whiten, the whole water will turn white, and then you get that beautiful sort of turquoise color that you see it in these areas. This is probably eelgrass, which is not their favorite spawning habitat or substrate, but that's what that is. Next one, please. This is a female. That's her urogenital which is connected to two oviducts. Because I think those are eggs on this is a lab shot. Next one, please. And there she is putting eggs on the substrate, and I think you can sort of see a few eggs there. Next one, please. And if you hit once more, this is a video, but it might not work. One more? No, it doesn't. No. That was just herring moving and spawning. If the videos don't work, it's good to know that now. This is a right female. This is probably a pretty big one. They can be about 30% weight, ovary by weight, or eggs by total body weight.
Sorry.
Next one, please. And that's what the ovaries look like. When they're right, they will actually flow from the oviduct. You can pick them up and the eggs just ooze out. And they're quite good. They're really sticky. Next one, please. Next one, please. The eggs they sit on the bottom. The herring spot. I'm confused by this slide. But the eggs are intertidal or shallow subtidal. They don't usually go below probably 10 meters would be the maximum depth. Unlike a European herring, Atlantic herring, they go much deeper. It's a different area there. But all of Pacific herring are more or less in shallow water. And here it's some are intertidal and shallow subtidal. They don't go below the photic zone at all, and they like vegetation or rocks. Next one, please. The order of these things seem to be a little bit different than I remember, but this is a herring egg. That little hole there is called the microplat. And this is where the sperm has to get. The sequence is a little bit interesting. That doesn't make sense. But anyway, the sperm has to find its way to that micropile. And once in, that micropile will close. It's hairy, but it's kind of high tech at the same time. Let's allow one in. Next one, please. These are herring eggs. I got this shot from the web, but I judge these to be about 1 day old. When you look at a herring egg and it's live and it's fertilized, recently fertilized, they're transparent. You can sort of see through them. But you can also just see in some of them a little patch of cells that are starting to form, called a blastula. Next one, please. This is the same sort of thing. You can see that some of these eggs have collapsed, like a football that's got a hole in it. That's what happens when they get in air. They're not necessarily dead. They can reinflate if they get back in water. Not always. These are nice, clean eggs. You don't see too much garbage in them. You don't see any fungus from them. Next one, please. These are the same sort of thing. These eggs are really close to the development. The eyes are there. You look at them through the microscope. The eyes are looking at you. They're absolutely beautiful. Next one. Oh, this works. These are herring eggs inside their they're outside the female, but this is what they're looking like when we're in the spawning areas. You can see the little heart developing there, and when you look at them, the eyes are moving. It's pretty good, pretty neat. Because the little segments you can possibly see that are how the body segments, and then they develop into the vertebrae. Herring are about 30% us. We share about 30% of our DNA in common. So we have an affinity for these things. Next one, please. Next one. Yeah, these are old guts from longer ago than I want to think, but it's Parksville. These are herring eggs on the beach after a storm. Especially you get this where you have eelgrass. Herring eggs don't stick to eelgrass as well as they should. So a good southeast storm or any kind of storm can dislodge these eggs. These eggs are still alive for a while. Not for that long, a couple of days, depending where you get them. and then they start to smell you. And the other thing is, if you go out on the beach and you look at the birds, they gobble these up only for a few days. Then they just up and stop. I don't know why, because they don't smell that bad right away. Next one. We can go out there and we could take measurements, look at the subsamples of the beach, and find out what the tonnage was of some of these lakes that have been removed. And this is an aside. The next slide. We just had a few decades ago, people were interested in the possibility of making new herring populations. That's what salmon biologists like to do. But it was an interesting thing to do. They had all these eggs that they knew were alive, and well, people in DFO decided they would like to support fish farms, and so they really wanted us to support fish farms, but they couldn't find a way to do it. So they said, well, maybe we could do some herring work that would also support the fish farms. So we moved these eggs over to an area where the first fish farm was. I didn't care about fish farms, but I was interested in the experimental work. Next one, please. We took all those live eggs and we put them from Parksville right over to Nelson Island. And there's a little inlet there. It's about 1 kilometer long. You have to have high tide to get in and out. It's an ideal place to see if you could start a new herring population. We did it for 3 years in a row. We monitored with Plankton to see if anything was happening, and it just did not work. Which, the bad news is it didn't work. The good news is it's not that simple just to start a herring population. But it's all published in the work. I did it with Jeff Marley of the Vancouver Grant. Next one, please. And what happens every year with herring is there's spawn surveys. It's the cat's meow for figuring out how many herring there are. And you can't read that. These are well-established methods. Started actually in 1929 with spawn surveys. Next one, please. The surveys didn't really get going properly until 1937, but we did have 100 years of records for over 100 for the Strait of Georgia. And this is what happens every year. Jane was involved in this. I don't have your picture though. Early in the years, people would go out and they'd take a square meter of herring bottom. They'd sample every egg there, count them, find out what kind of vegetation it was, what kind of substrate it was. And that way, when they go out and do surveys now, they still do a little bit of it. They do a lot of surveys, but they're still figuring out what kind of vegetation it is, what kind of substrate it is, where you are, how many eggs are there, and you can roll that up into an estimate of how much herring spawn, so-called biomass estimate. You can go from eggs to tons. It's a pretty good method. It's the same conceptual method people use for things like anchovies or sardines. It's just that in this case, it's done with eggs. Next one, please. I'm going to show you a few of these because they work. These are just the dots show where herring are on the BC coast. This is around Parksville area. Sorry, well, it's a combination of Parksville and the Lambert Channel area on Denman Island. And this is going through time in terms of every year where they spawn. The size of the dots are equal to or proportional to roughly the amount of spawn there. And that blue dot is Cherry Point in Washington State. Next one, please. So I've said all this. It's just when the water turns right, that's the time to do this work. But these spawn surveys are expensive. And I mentioned this now, and I'll say it again probably. Some people say, let's shut down the fishery, which might be okay, but it would be a shame to shut down the spawn surveys to tell us what's going on. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a clue. Herring could basically disappear here. And so I feel very strongly that these are really good things to carry on. Okay, excellent. This is just the same sort of thing, showing how this area here, is, the Comox area, Lambert Channel in particular, is an important one. I'll say the same, I'll show the same things again. Oh, about 80% of the herring occur in 5% of the areas. We really know for the most part where they are. There's been some changes in herring spawn distribution, and I'll talk more about that in a short time. Next one. This is Denman Island. This is Thornby Island. This is Barkley Sound. This is just how the spawn is changing with time. That's 1932. This is 19. The years are not coordinated. And Barkley Sound is, of course, southland of Bedford Island. And this area here is sort of semi-north on the inside Strait of Georgia. This is, and I was described this as the biggest herring spawning area on the west coast of North America. And I feel pretty strongly that it's an extremely important spot that we need to protect. I want to say a bit more about this one in the next slide. Hopefully it's going. This is not doing what it should. Can I go back with one? Oh, aren't they moving? One back. Oh, try a couple forward. I don't think it's gonna. Well, one back, please, Peter. What I was hoping to show you with this one, this is Barkley Sound on the west coast of Ireland. Cluet is here. This is a Broken Island group. This is one of the main herring spawning areas here. There was an oil spill in Oregon in 1988, and the same year as the Exxon Valdez oil spill trustee council. That oil came right up here, and it was a bit of a mess. The fisheries and oceans got themselves very excited about it, and we did quite a bit of mucking around out here. But what I really wanted to show you is that in 1988, all the spawn moved. Traditionally, right here, it moved to the Broken Island group. Next year, it came right back. So something about oil, the herring didn't like it. They did change, not a big change in distribution, but they changed that one. It might not have been the oil, it might have been all of the DFO people running around the beach and stuff like that. Next one, please. This is, so Barkley Sound, of course, is a very key area for herring spawning. This is the same sort of thing, the Denman Island area and the Comox area. These are all circles which just give a rough indication of how important it is. And this is the biggest herring spawning area in BC. And I mention this because you can't see it all that clearly, but it's an area where it's under active development for different kinds of mariculture. If people want to raise gooey ducks, they already do up to a point, but they want to do gooey cultures, sea cucumber culture, and other kinds. These little things here are leases. People have gone through the province to try to lease this area. And in BC, fisheries, fish is under federal control, but a lot of mariculture, shellfish culture is under provincial control. And sometimes those two perspectives don't meet entirely. Next one. So this, I'm just saying, this is Lambert Channel, 38% of all the spawning in BC. It's an area that I think needs considerable protection. And I think the Comox First Nations are probably the most diligent in protecting that area. Next one, please. Herring larvae. This is this one here. I just want to, they're planktonic. They have a yolk stage that lasts about 5 days, and they metamorphose in 30 to 60 days, which means they start looking like a real fish. Next one. And this is a better picture of them. This is a little eggs. This is a diagram, but when you first see them, they're only a few minutes old. You can just see that the little cell starting to divide. So that would be about a 4-cell division. You see it within minutes after you fertilize them. And then they develop after about 10 to 14 days, temperature dependent. They go like this. So next stage, they hatch from a big yolk sac. a few days later, that yolk sac is smaller and they just start to feed. And when they start to feed, you can start to see the food goes right down the spore gut and it comes right down here. And that's a fish, little larvae that's feeding. They love little copepod larvae. That's one of they call them noctii. They eat a lot of pollen. They eat they eat maple pollen and oak pollen, and this passes through them. And sometimes they eat air bubbles. And that's lethal because the little butts are in the wrong direction. Next one, please. Oh, larval herring surveys. We did those too. Next one, please, Peter. We did this for a number of years, 4 years in the Strait of Georgia. The size of the circle here is how many larvae we'll find. Different ways of doing it. This is from a large vessel with a large plankton net. Next one, please. Just a simple way of going about doing them. You have a little meter in there, so you know how much water's flowed through. You take it out and you count what's there, and you can find out what the density of larvae is. Next one. And all I'm trying to do here is just show the red is where the spawn is, Berkeley Sound, and the same area that shows the south. This is where the red spawning area is, and the big blue circles are where the larvae were. So the larvae do move away pretty quickly from where the spawning areas are. Next one, please. Same sort of thing. We did it up to the central coast a bit. You can see that the larvae were quite a bit different from this distribution was bigger than the spawning area, which is what you'd expect. We did the same sort of thing with hooligans as well. These larvae are really the victim, not the victim, but they are controlled by the surface water tides. And I'm not putting them on here, but we have videos. A graduate student did at UBC, which just shows how the larvae are moved with different kind of tidal movements over the years. And some years they get moved around quite a bit. Next one, please. This is Vancouver Harbor. That's Howe Sound, and by and large, the fish, the larvae over here stay here, and vice versa. They move a lot, but they don't really go in that deeper water very much. Okay, next one. I've already talked about this. This is 4 years of slides. And the main takeaway point is that larval distributions of blue circles expand greatly beyond where the spawning distribution is in the red circles. And depending on when you do these larval surveys, you'll either catch lots or not very many. Larval mortality is fantastic. It's very high, 10% a day. It's a lot of things eat herring larvae. Even we do if you swim in that time of the water, the time of year when they're there. They're unavoidable. They're here too. One of the things I really wanted to do is put a light over a wharf in around late March. And if you do that in the dark, all sorts of fish larvae come up, and herring larvae are prominent among them. It's a neat thing to do. Next one. So moving on to juveniles. Next one. The next one, the juveniles last from about 6 months to a couple of years. Go back. Next one. Thank you, Peter. We catch juveniles with a seine boat. This is a very small vessel. It's not a commercial vessel. It's a research boat with a special small seine. And next one, please. For years, well, not years, but initially they started doing this. So they go out at night and they set these nets in complete darkness. You put a light on, the herring will swim away. And this is where initially they did them all, but they went from there. Next slide. And they focused on just these areas, and each of these points, so they developed a protocol. Next one. So each of these little spots are where they made a separate seine, and they did this, and they still do it over a number of years. And that gives an idea of how many juvenile herring are out there. These juvenile herring are going to be they do these things usually in September, so they're going to be 6, 7, 8 months old. Next one, please. And this is what they find. The number of the juveniles in the catch
It's a log scale. It's 100,000, 1,000, and so on. And this is from here. I don't go beyond this, but they do carry on. And so you find quite a few juveniles there. And again, I'll point out, they set these blind. They don't look for herring. They just go out there, and this is what they get. Next one. There's 2 years where they didn't find very many juveniles at all. 2005 and 2007 were spectacularly low years for juveniles. So what does that mean? And next one, please. When you look at this is an estimate of the total herring here, the adult herring, and this is where the juveniles were. Those 2 years, 2005 and 2007, were really bad years for herring coming in. Point is that herring, usually we call it year class strength. When you have a really strong year class, you have lots of, 3 years after they spawn, you have lots of herring coming in. But in these 2 years, 2005 moving to 2008, 2007 moving to 2010, it was really bad years. In other words, this is what's controlling herring up to a point, is how many juveniles you can get through during the first year of life. Next one, please. Next one. And so I'm mentioning this next one. This is the same sort of thing, except this is looking at herring when they're age 2. In 2005 and 2007, they just didn't make it. Something went wrong in those years. Next one. But they carry on with these surveys, and they are pretty good indicators, which gives people an idea of being a little bit cautious. These are just slides that show different metrics for saying what happens when you have a really bad year of juveniles. Next one, please. And so I'll just reiterate. The observation is that when you have bad years of juveniles or poor year classes, it might translate into poor fish coming into spawn 2 or 3 years later. Next one, please. Okay, just to summarize life history. Brenda didn't like this shot, but I kept it in anyway. This is just a summary of the herring life history, which goes from spawning, which you have white water that moves into and eggs on the beach. Eggs develop, and the eggs develop to larvae. The larvae go to juveniles. The juveniles don't stay in the Strait of Georgia. Most, if not virtually all, move out from the Strait of Georgia, and they spend their time off the west coast of Vancouver Island. Herring don't live off the continental shelf. You don't really find them, at least in the Western Pacific, Eastern Pacific. You don't find them much below 100 fathoms. That's where they are. But this is where you make herring. This is where they eat. They eat phenomenal amounts of zooplankton, and this is where they add biomass. It's also, things that can affect them where the hake that migrate up from California, they can just decimate them too. But the long and short is you have eggs, larvae, juveniles. Juveniles come out when they're after 1 year, 18 months. They feed here. They sexually mature. Very few. Some of the males will mature at age 2, but almost exclusively females at age 3, and then they come back in. Next one, please. That's the same thing. That one back. To come back in, this arrow is misleading. They come back in that way. We argued about that a bit. Next one, please. Okay, fisheries and assessments. I'll try to go fast. This is what gets controversial about the herring fishery. Until the 1930s, a relatively small fishery. It was all salted and exported. 1930s and 1960s, there were a huge fishery called meal fisheries. They took them and they crunched them into meal. And then in about mid-70s, they moved it over to a roe fishery because the fishery collapsed. There were just no herring around for a few years. There's always been a little bit of spawn on kelp for First Nations use. It's also exported now. Next one, please. Oh, I'm sorry. back. This is what roe looks like when they take it out of the fish. They take it out. It's brine, and they grade it, and it's worth a small fortune in places like Japan. And the herring roe from BC is highly prized there for whatever aspects they like. Next one, please. I really want to talk mostly about the Strait of Georgia, but just point out that Haida Gwaii, North Coast, Central Coast, West Coast, Strait of Georgia, this is where all assessments are done in different parts of BC. Next one. If you look at the total amount of fishing in BC, this is the catch in terms of tons, 100,000, 200,000. These are big numbers. This is time going from 1910 to year 2000. It could carry on, but it doesn't matter. It shows the main thing. Catches were recorded really well, and they increased, but this is the period of the so-called meal fishery when things were reduced. This is a roe fishery. The important point here is that the catches were huge, and the herring collapsed. They shut things down for 4 years. When they shut them down, they stopped doing assessments too for 4 years, which is stupid. But this is the red is the amount of spawn. You can see during the roe fish, the reduction fishery, these years up to about the late 60s, there wasn't that much spawn, although it was widely distributed. Now we have a lot more spawn, and the total catches in the roe fishery are low. This is still controversial, as you probably know, but there's way more herring now than there used to be. It just doesn't be where we want it to be necessarily. Next one, please. Next one. Other things. Oh, look at that. Nothing there. Funny. Next one. The previous one. Things have changed. Herring are getting smaller. This is the west coast of Vancouver Island. This is the weighted age. So this would be I think that's probably H2, H3. In the last few decades, the weighted age has gone down. That's the same thing as Haida Gwaii, Strait of Georgia, which is this one, Central Coast. Weighted age has gone down. Next one, please. Look at that. Another one gone. Next one, please. Oh, in California. The same thing has happened in California. Next one, please. This is not here. But the weighted age has also gone down in Alaskan populations, and even the Prince William Sound, which is showing here. Next one, please. So there's been changes in the sizes of herring. They're getting smaller. They're okay. There's lots of them. No, relative in some ways, but they are smaller. There's been changes also in the spawn distribution and also in the timing. We'll show you the next slide. If you step back and say, what's the big picture in the Strait of Georgia? This is the black arrows. This is where spawn is since the roe fishery. It's come up. This is where spawn has come down, although these were never ever big areas. And around here, this is where we are here. It's sort of stayed about the same. Next one. This is a spatial diversity, the same sort of thing. Each of these little spots here is called a section. It's a geographical thing. The numbers of sections where they spawn has gone down. In other words, they're spawning in fewer areas. There's more fish spawning, but they're spawning in fewer spots. Next one, please. You can't see this one, but this was an important slide. Let's try the next one, Peter. No, it doesn't work either. The spawning times have condensed. We used to get spawning usually starting in January. We've got early spawns, and it would gradually build up and it would taper off in April. And now it's really compacted compared to what it used to be. It's not clear why. Next one. Next one. Oh, and also, as things have changed, you can't see things here, but the spawning has moved a little bit north compared to what. So it changes in size. changes in duration, and changes in location. But more herring. Next one, please. Next one. What have I got here? This is just the same sort of thing. This is degree latitude. 49 degrees is the U.S.-Canadian border. This is 49 degrees. This is the so-called centroids of spawn. This is where the center of spawning is. And you can see in the 90s and carrying on to the present time, more of the spawning in the Strait of Georgia is a little bit further north than it used to be. Next one. Next one. Oh, if you really want to punish yourself, you might go to the website and look at the DFO stock assessment report. The fact is, it's a pain in the ass to go there and look at it, but it's really not badly done if you really want the hard information. You have to work hard at it, though. It's online. If you want to find out, what happened last year, good luck. But it's the assessment methodology is really first rate, in my opinion. The ways they go about it's looked at by people from all over the world. And they have external advisors who come in and look at the statistical methods. It's a very statistical process. Next one, please. And you'll see this shot here in there, and the next one. And this is what I wanted to show you. This is the estimate of spawning biomass, and this is the Strait of Georgia. And this is 100,000 metric tons, and that would be what they think is happening here. In other words, and those are the couple of years when I mentioned that there was a couple of really bad year classes, it's quite low. And this is the catch. Catch in the big roe fisheries. The Strait of Georgia was 60, 70,000 metric tons. It's huge. It's nothing like that now. It's now usually, it used to be about 20%. And they've lowered that. So they're being very cautious. It's still a controversial process. So next one, please. And this is, again, don't worry about natural mortality, but this is the same sort of thing. The catch rates are lower. That would be 20%, 40%, 60%. They're catching 60% of the fish back in the 30s, which is crazy. It's now more like 10%. And it's better. Next one. I'm going to skip this one, please. I want to summarize this. The total herrings population, I'm speaking mainly in the Strait of Georgia. It's mainly above the long-term average. It's settling out. The herring are getting smaller, but there's similar trends in other populations. We don't understand it. Spawning duration is shorter. We again don't understand it, but the temperatures are going up. And I said that the environments are changing. We have changes in the predator community. It's not clear. And so some of the changes that are occurring here in the Strait of Georgia are occurring in other populations in California and Alaska. Next one, please. And so why are they happening? Some people just blame the fishery, but that is a little bit short-sighted. There's more going on than that. And we don't understand why there's a loss of spatial and temporal, so-called biodiversity in this area. And to me, it's a concern. Next one. Some people say, well, let's just close the herring fishery. And that might be okay. But if you did, I would sure want to see the assessments carry on, because otherwise we wouldn't know if this is the case. And in the 1930s in Departure Bay, people would go out and they'd catch a little fish called a capelin. And the capelin were at the southern end of their distribution. They're gone. Nobody's looking for capelin anymore. So if you don't look, you won't know. And that's why I feel very strongly that we have to carry on with assessments. And California, when in the U.S., all the herring are managed by different states. It's not a federal thing. So in California, when the fishery went down, not so many fish, they closed the assessments, which is dumb. The same thing happened in Prince William Sound, Alaska. And it happened for me on the Fraser River with Luligans. we couldn't do catches were low as manager said, let's not do assessments anymore. Still, next one. And so I'll finish off. Habitat is a little fairly fast. What is going on with this? You know, we could look at herring. There's industrial pollution. It absolutely occurs. When you have areas around some types of industrial things, pulp mills, some of them, some refineries, mariculture. Yes, I think there's been documented evidence of changes in herring spawn distribution, but nothing would explain the big patterns that we're seeing. I don't think so. Invasive species are another ones. Oh yes, pulp mill booming. Booming is lethal for a herring. They don't spawn there under the. It's not just spawning; it's also where they overwinter. They used to overwinter in Northumberland Channel, and now they don't. There's lots of booms there, lots of sea lions too. So you know, lots of this stuff: sewage, urban pollution, pharmaceuticals, or lights, noise, seawater intakes, vessel noises, propeller things, and then those are sort of human industrial changes. There's changes in seal populations, humpback whales. They really worry people in Alaska, and climate change, and so on. I want to just finish off talking about oil residue from urban areas. Next one, please. This is a thing called the Costco Blue Sand, which is a huge crater, and this thing had dumped a lot of oil in San Francisco Bay. I forgot which year, but about 10 to 12 years ago. And people got very excited about this one. The authorities decided they were going to sue Costco Blue Sand for the oil spill because it did disrupt the herring fishery. It didn't necessarily kill the fish, all of them, but killed some. And so and there's people in government who, you know, they want to move on this. They're adamant that they can protect the environment. The U.S. did some really super work on this one, and they found that, you know, components of polyaromatic hydrocarbons affects the way herring develop. What happens is this is a herring that's being in contaminated water, and it uses the yolk sac differently. The heart is changed. These are really subtle things. You wouldn't notice it even under a microscope, but exposure to this oil is not so good. And this was Costco Blue Sand. And the long and short of it is, they took them to court and they settled out of court because what people found, these oils have signatures, chemical signatures. You can find what kind of where the source is. About half the oil they were getting from the Costco Blue Sand in the San Francisco Bay, about half was from Costco Blue Sand. The other was half industrial runoff and urban runoff, just from cars. So they settled out of court. They still paid, but it was kind of interesting. And you know, we don't have spawning in Nanaimo Harbor anymore. You can find a dozen reasons why there's not, but you know, oil from runoff could be one of them. Next one. And the last one. This is just a simple-minded summary of where we see different things: pulp mills, mariculture, log booms, vessel traffic, urbanization. It used to be herring in Vancouver Harbor, and not now. So I think that's the last slide, except this one. So this will be my simple-minded analysis. And the very last one, before I tell you something I hope will shock you all. I do hope it does. Anyway, that's me with herring. That's pretty shocking too. Here's the shocker. Oh. New Brunswick sardines? They're not sardines. They're herring. They always have been herring. They're juvenile herring. We could make sardines here with our juvenile ones, but they're herring. You'll occasionally get the odd Atlantic salmon here, but they try not to tell anybody about that. But anyway, thank you.
How big can they go, the biggest size, like